Okay, everyone, this is it for at least this part of the set. This covers at least the front side of my extra credit assignment, which you'll probably get tomorrow, if not by the end of the week, okay? But anyways, this time, though, before we solve these trig functions, here's something that you should know. If you don't understand, memorize this, okay? And hopefully one day you'll actually understand it as well as I do. But when we're dealing with the coordinate system, guys, and we have our quadrants, we have quadrant 1 here, 2, 3, and 4, right? Remember that x, okay, is always equivalent to cosine when the radius is 1, like in a unit circle. Sine is always equivalent to y. And tangent is always sine divided by cosine. So we're just relating it to in regards to sines. We know that if we're in the first quadrant, right, we know cosine and sine are both positive. The x and y coordinates are positive, right, because we're going right and up to get into this quadrant. And because both of them are positive, that means tangent is positive, right? If we were to go to quadrant 2 over here, we know that cosine, because it's equivalent to x, is now negative because we have to go left to get into the second quadrant, right? Now, sine being equivalent to y, we went up to get into this quadrant. So the y coordinate will be a positive. And since these are different signs, I know my tangent is going to have to be negative, because a negative divided by a positive, or positive divided by negative, is always a negative. So that's how the second quadrant works. Now the third quadrant, we should hopefully understand that cosine and sine are both negative. And because of that, tangent's going to be positive whenever I do a negative divided by negative. And finally, in quadrant 4, x now is positive again, so cosine is positive. Remember, cosine is your x. So if x is positive, cosine is positive. Almost wrote it wrong there. Sorry about that, guys. Sine, because we're going down to get to a point or coordinate in this quadrant 4, is going to be negative. And see how they're different signs again? That's how I know tangent is negative as well. And you basically should have this memorized. There's little tricks, and your teacher will share them with you. But anyways, let's get to the problems so you can see how this all plays out. So I'm just going to go in order here. Here was number 7. To solve any tangent function, guys, see the tangent theta right here? We have to basically solve for it first. So I'm going to start by adding 2 to both sides. Once I get rid of the negative 2, you see that tangent theta is negative 3, negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. So we now can solve for theta. All we have to do is a tangent inverse, right? Because on tan they cancel out. So once I do a tangent inverse on both sides, I know my theta, my angle theta, has to be whatever the tangent inverse of negative 1 is, right? So let's just go to our trusty calculator. Your teacher should let you use it. So here I have the tangent inverse, or arctan, of negative 1. It's negative 45 degrees. Now here's where the catch comes in, guys. You will be told most likely that your theta has to be within the range of 0 up to 360 degrees. Negative 45 is not between 0 and 360 degrees. So what you're going to learn to do is simply add 360 to it. And I know one angle is 315 degrees. Now there is a second angle. Think of when tangent is negative. See, our tangent was negative 1. Our tangent right here was negative 1, right? Well, let's look at the coordinate system. Think about it. Where is tangent negative? Tangent is negative here and here, right? Now, we already have 315 covered. 315 is the same thing as negative 45 this way. We just went around, because that's the positive way, going counterclockwise, 315 degrees, okay? So we have the fourth quadrant covered with 315, which again is equivalent to negative 45. Now what about, where else is it negative? Is in quadrant 2 up here. So all you have to do is think of, okay guys, if I have a 45 here, right, what angle would that be? And the answer is, let's just take 180 minus 45, and we will get 135 degrees, because from here, follow the red, to here is 135, which is equivalent to 45 degrees reference angle into the second quadrant there. Basically, we know straight across to the left is 180. So once I go backwards and subtract 45, I got 135. So our answer is going to be 315 degrees and 135 degrees. So pause the video if you need to, guys. Okay, this one here, let's solve for sine of theta. All we need to do is divide by negative 2. Sine of theta, therefore, is, be careful with your signs, it's a positive square root 2 over 2 because the negatives cancel out. Now this one you should have memorized if you know your unit circle, okay? But if you don't, let's use our calculator. Notice, guys, square root 2 over 2 on our calculator is 0.707. Once I do the sine inverse on that, because that's how we find theta right here, right? We're going to do, theoretically, we did the sine inverse on both sides, okay? Well, we got 45 degrees. So let's look at our quadrant system. We already got our 45 right here. That's one answer. Where else is sine a positive square root 2 over 2? Remember, sine goes with y, right? Well, that's quadrant 2 over here, right? Quadrant 2 over here, y is still positive because I went up. Y is still positive there, right? So what's a 45 degree angle here again? We just already calculated in the last problem. This is 180. So if I'm going back up there 45 degrees, I know 180 minus 45 is 135 again. So this time my answer is 45 degrees and 135 degrees. Pause the video if you need to. All right, number 9, guys, looks really scary, right? The thing you want to do is let's get rid of these 3 fractions here, the thirds. How are we going to do that? We're going to times every term by 3. That includes the 5 right there. We're going to times every term by 3. Here's what happens. Isn't 3 over 3 1? We're now left with 15 plus square root of 2 equals. Here, 3 times 5 is 15. Here, there is a minus. So we have a minus, but the 3's cancel out to sine theta. Now what? Well, notice, guys, what happens if we just simply minus 15 both sides? Oops, those are gone. So now I have square root of 2 equal to negative 2 sine of theta. And all I have to do now is divide by negative square root of 2. My sine, notice, is a negative square root 2 over 2. Again, if you know your unit circle, you should know what value is negative square root 2 over 2 already. But let's say you didn't. You could go to your calculator. Here's my square root 2 over negative 2. Same thing as negative square root 2 over 2, which is negative 0.707. Because it was a sine again, we did sine inverse of our answer right there. We got negative 45. So let's think about this. We know one of our answers is negative 45, but we want a positive angle, not a negative. So what do? Let's add 360 with it. One of our answers is 315 again. Now, where else is sine negative? Let's be careful. if we do a quick sketch of our coordinate system, remember guys, sine is our y. Where is sine negative? Quadrant 3, quadrant 4. We already did the 315, which would be right here, which again is equivalent to negative 45 degrees, right? So there's our 315. So we're missing the 1 over here. What do? I just quickly sketch in my 45-degree angle. And since I'm going down from my 180, everyone agrees right there's 180 again. I just need to take 180 plus 45. 225 degrees, guys. Follow the green. Goes from here all the way to there. That's our 225 degrees, okay? So those are our two answers. 315 and 225 degrees. Pause the video. I think there's one more to do. Here we go. Again, it looks scary, but why don't we times everything by 2? Because 2 times 5 is 10, but 2 cancels out the 1/2. We're just left with plus tangent theta. Watch that sign there, guys. If it was negative, we'd have a negative there. Here, 2 divided by 2 is 1. I'm just left with 10 plus square root of 3. Notice, guys, if I minus 10 both sides, oops, I now have tangent theta equal to square root of 3. Now, this one you want not necessarily have memorized. So we're going to go to our calculator. Because it's tangent, we're going to do tangent inverse. So square root of 3, first of all, is 1.732. Now I do the tangent inverse on that answer. It's 60 degrees. So one of our answers is 60. Now let's go to our coordinate system. Where is tangent positive? Remember, tangent was a positive 1.73, right? Where is tangent positive? Well, tangent is positive in the first quadrant. We already got that covered with our 60 here, right? Where else is tangent positive? Down here. So if this is 60 down, do you agree 180 degrees plus 60 is 240 degrees? Watch the red, guys. In other words, if I started at 0 and I went all the way around 60 degrees past 180, I would be at 240, would I not? And so therefore, our two answers, guys, are 60 degrees and 240 degrees. Pause the video if you need to, guys. Guys, I hope these videos make sense and they help you out. This last video obviously was a tougher of the bunch, so that's why I saved it for last. But there's no reason with a little determination you can't get an A on this quiz coming very soon, most likely tomorrow. Okay, I'll see you in class.